Hello and welcome to this month's Community for Food cookery demo. Thank you everybody who's joining live today, pleasure to have you with us, and also hi to anyone who is watching back later, it's great to have you along as well. Today we're doing Kedgeree, which is a childhood favourite recipe of mine actually. Kedgeree, it's a funny old name actually, isn't it? But it's basically a sort of fish, egg and rice dish. So it's a nutrition powerhouse. It's full of all the good stuff, so it's really, really good for you. And it is super tasty as well. So I can't wait. As always, whether you're watching live or watching back, if you've got any questions at all, whilst I'm cooking today or about any of the new norm recipes, to be fair, then you can just drop me a message anytime and I will get back to you either on message or live via the video if you ask me whilst we're live right now. And the oh, sorry, 1 second whilst my mic gets fixed. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. It always throws me when cameraman sort of start gesturing in the background and I don't know what it's about, but hopefully you can hear me better now. We good? Cool, so as I was saying, any questions, drop me a message that's on the number on the recipe cards, which is 077 233 41919, and I'll come back to you on message if you've got any questions about this recipe or any other new norm recipes that you've had throughout the year from Community for Food. Feel free to get in touch. So, as I said, today's recipe, can't wait, Kedgeree, an old favourite, and it's super good for you. So we'll run through the ingredients super quickly first to give you a chance to get them all out if you haven't already. We've got 2 cans of mackerel. These are 125 gram cans, so 2 of them in oil. Doesn't matter whether it's olive oil or sunflower oil, but you want them in oil. Rice, we've got 280 grams of rice. You can use white or brown. If it's brown, it'll take slightly longer to cook, so I've gone with white today. 150 grams, sorry, of peas. That can be canned peas or frozen peas, it doesn't matter, as long as they're drained if they're canned. 2 teaspoons of curry powder. Could be curry powder, could be cumin, could be garam masala, something curry-ish is absolutely grand. 600 millilitres of milk and 3 eggs. And that's it. So pretty simple. Right. First things first, what I want you to do is get a small pan of water onto the boil. And this is to hard boil some eggs. So pop your water onto boil. Some people say get your water up to the boil before you put the eggs in. I always say just put them in whilst it's cold, because then you're not going to drop them and crack them on the base of the pan. So just gently place your 3 eggs into the water there, and then let that come up to the boil. Once it boils, reduce it to a simmer, and then once you reduce it to a simmer, 5 minutes from there to get a hard-boiled egg. I rarely use a timer when cooking, but when I'm boiling eggs, I always try to remember to put a timer on, because if you don't, it's hit or miss whether it's hard-boiled, soft-boiled, or somewhere in between. So I always try and remember to do a timer for that. So get your eggs in onto a high heat, bring them to the boil. Then in a large frying pan or wok, can be either, because this pan has to fit everything into it essentially, so make sure it's big enough. Get that onto a medium-high heat. Oof, that's a high heat. Medium-high heat. There we go. And then straight away into that, we're just going to put our cans of mackerel, oil and everything. So this saves you using any other oil, you just use the oil from the cans, which is already nice and fishy tasting. Which, fishy tasting doesn't sound like a very good description, but actually it's a brilliant taste. Mackerel is one of my favourite fish. So just pop that in there, and then with a fork, you just want to sort of flake that a little bit, so it's not in a big chunk like it comes out of the can. You just want to break it up a little bit with a fork, like so. There we go. I'm just going to put a lid on those eggs to get them to come up to the boil a wee bit quicker. also saves with energy. If you put a lid on pans, then it saves you on energy because it comes to the boil quicker, which we could all do right now with the price of energy. So just break that down. You can flake it as big or little as you like. If you kind of like chunkier pieces of fish, then you don't need to flake it too much. But if you like it a bit finer, or if you've got fussy kids who are sort of, you're trying to hide it a little bit, then break it down quite finely. But it's completely personal preference, so I'm just going to do it, leave it fairly chunky. And there you go. And you're not frying this mackerel in the oil necessarily. We're just sort of just breaking it up, and then we're about to add the other ingredients in here as well. So that will just about do, I think. It'll naturally break up a little bit as you cook and stir through anyway, so I think that's fine. Right, and then into that, we're going to add our rice and our curry powder. So it's 2 teaspoons of curry powder. I'm just going to sort of eyeball that because my thing's not going to go in there, and say that's 2 teaspoons there. But depending on your personal preferences as well, you might want more or less curry powder. Or if you don't like curry flavour, you can skip it out completely. That is absolutely fine. It'll be just as good without it. My mum never put any curry flavour in it. Traditionally, Kedgeree does have curry powder in it, or it's a curried dish. My mum never did put it in, and I actually loved it without as well. So if we're going to, she would shudder at the thought of her being the benchmark of a good Kedgeree, I'm sure, but it is actually my benchmark. So well done, Mumsy. Right, so now you've got your fish and your curry powder and your rice in there. Now you want to put in your milk. So we've got 600 millilitres of milk in total that you're going to need. I've measured that out here, but I'm only going to put about half of it, a good glug, about half of it in there right now, and let that sort of, it's a bit like making a risotto. You sort of want to stir, let it absorb, and then add some more. And basically that liquid is going to cook the rice in it. So there we go. Shouldn't do any salt in this dish because the mackerel is naturally quite salty, but once we get to that point, you can sort of taste and adjust seasoning as you see fit. So just going to let that do its thing. I'm going to move these eggs over onto a slightly hotter hob just because I'm conscious that we'll have a bit of filler time otherwise. So I've just reduced the heat on the Kedgeree. So that's in a medium to low heat now, just whilst that. You don't want to cook this too fast, because if you cook it too fast, then it will absorb all the liquid, but the rice will still be hard. So you want to have this now on a fairly medium to low heat to just let that kind of slowly heat up, absorb the milk, and cook the rice. Meanwhile, we've got our eggs on and we're still waiting for them to come to the boil. How annoying. Right, so as you can see, we're getting there very quickly. We've only got our peas and the rest of the milk to get into the creation. I'm using frozen peas, so they don't take very long at all to cook, nor do tinned peas, to be fair. If you are using tinned peas, now's a good time to open up that can and drain the peas, because you don't want any of the liquid from the can in there. And then we'll pop them in to the Kedgeree once it's cooked a bit, because you don't want to overcook the peas or they'll lose their lovely flavour and greenness. So we'll leave them there right now. And now basically we're waiting for our eggs to cook, and then we will peel and slice them, and then we're just waiting for our Kedgeree to sort of absorb all that lovely milk. So, nice and easy, hey? It does take a bit, it's not one that you can walk away and leave, because it will stick to the bottom of the pan, the milk will boil, and all sorts of rubbish that you don't want to happen will happen. So you do have to be sort of present with this one, but it's fairly low effort. So it's a nice one, nice easy one that doesn't take too much thinking. One thing to note, with the Kedgeree and the milk that's in there right now, you don't really want that to be boiling. When milk boils, it sort of has a bit of a funny taste. So you just want that to be simmering. You don't want that to go too hot. So just be mindful of that. Like, you wouldn't want it cooking any more vigorously than this is now. You see how it's sort of bubbling away, but not boiling. That might even be a little bit cooking too quickly. So this ring in the middle that I've got is a bit of a crazy one that is, that's it in its lowest heat and it's still cooking a bit quickly. So I'm just going to move it over here to a slightly lower heat so it doesn't cook too fast, because you just want it simmering, not boiling. This one's still too fast. This is the problem with cooking with gas sometimes. It's just a bit too fast. That's maybe okay. Right, now our eggs are boiling. I'm going to turn them down to a simmer. That's great. And then when they're simmering, 5 minutes on the timer to make sure they're hard boiled. That's too fast. So I'm just going to do a little more. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. What I'm going to do is put my eggs, now that they're simmering, back over here. And I'm going to put the Kedgeree over on this smaller ring to simmer it down a wee bit. So it's a fine art. And as you can see already, that's starting to look a little bit nicer as the rice starts to absorb the milk. So at this point, I'm going to put in a bit more of the milk. Maybe not all of it still, another sort of half of what was left. And then stir that through as well. Because if it boils too quickly like it was, like I say, it just absorbs all the water, all the milk, but the rice isn't cooked, so you want to keep it cooking nice and gently. So there we go. Lovely. All right, so just tell you a wee bit about, I said at the beginning, this is a nutrition powerhouse. Maybe I didn't use those words, but it is. This recipe is so full of good stuff. So mackerel, it's probably one of the best fish you can eat, actually, and it's brilliant because, I'm going to say this off the top of my head, I think a can like this is 95p for this can of mackerel, and that would serve 2 people. And so it's cheap, and that can last for, well, what is the best before? I bought that today, and the best before is August 2028, so it lasts for years when it's canned. So super easy to store, super cheap, and really versatile. So you can make something like this, you can use it just on toast, you can put it in a salad, you can make it into a patty. There's so many things you can do with it. So it's a really healthy, cheap, and quite easy thing to get hold of at the supermarkets, and it is in most supermarkets. Reason it's so good is mackerel, as well as all sort of oily fish, has lots of omega-3 in it. Now, you might hear of omega-3 and omega-6, and generally in all of the food, everybody basically has too much omega-6 in their diet, because omega-6 is in all processed foods, essentially. It's in like seed oils and all that sort of stuff, which tends to be used heavily in processed food. So it's all about getting the right balance between omega-3 and omega-6. So basically, we need to be getting as much omega-3 into our diet to combat the high levels of omega-6. So mackerel is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant source of omega-3. So as often as you can get sort of a tin of mackerel into your diet, then that is really good for you. So it's great on that front. Why else is it good? Eggs, we've got 3 eggs in this, and eggs basically contain, in some volume, like obviously it doesn't have lots of all of them, but eggs basically have all the vitamins and minerals you need in your body in some volume, some size, which is great. Couldn't really ask for much more. But also a great source of good cholesterol. So good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, it's a similar story to your omega-3, omega-6. Basically, you want a balance. So eggs are actually a brilliant source of good cholesterol, and you need cholesterol. Cholesterol's not always bad. You need it for like healthy skin, eyes, brain function, basically to restore and replenish all of your cells. So you need cholesterol in your life. So an egg a day keeps the doctor away. That's what I believe anyway. So we've got fish, we've got eggs, we've got peas. Peas are a fantastic source of plant-based protein, and peas, same as mackerel actually, to be honest. You can buy them in tins or you can buy them frozen. They're cheap, they're super easy to cook with. If I've got a dish that I'm cooking for dinner and I'm like, it looks a bit beige, or it's lacking any vegetables, or it's lacking protein, whether it's lacking vegetables or lacking protein, I'm like, chuck a handful of peas in it, and it's going to improve it both in terms of protein amount or vegetable amount, and it also gives it a little flash of green color, which is never hurts, does it? And it always makes it look a bit more, makes it look a bit healthier and tastes a bit better as well. So fish, eggs, peas, brilliant recipe. I don't use dairy milk, so I'm using almond milk in this recipe, but it's completely up to you. You obviously can, if you eat dairy, then it's absolutely fine with regular dairy milk. If you're going plant-based, then you can use any plant-based milk, oat, almond, coconut, whatever. It'll all work out pretty good. So there we have it. Super healthy recipe. Any questions on that front, then just message me. I'm always happy to talk about what foods are good to have in your diet and what you should maybe be trying to reduce. But it's all horses for courses. Right. Oh, my timer doesn't ding. It's a silent timer, but it has clicked off. So good news. Time to peel our eggs. Now, that didn't feel like 5 minutes, actually. I hope they're done. Maybe it did. I was maybe chatting away for longer than I think. Right, what I would normally do, I'm not next to a sink in my little cook-along corner here, but what I would normally do is get the pan of eggs and just flush it with cold water to make them holdable so I can peel them. But what I'm going to do, this is a bowl of cold water that I've got here, so I'm basically just going to submerge my eggs into cold water to hopefully make them peelable, basically. So what I'm going to do is then just tap, 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 and then I'm just going to get a wee bowl to put the shells in, and then peel the eggs. I always find this quite therapeutic, actually, peeling the eggs. My dog's probably going to come running through because he loves an eggshell, which I know a lot of people sort of think, that is crazy, why are you feeding your dogs the eggshell? But he loves them. He loves them. I think it's good roughage for him or something, I don't know, but he absolutely loves them. So I say an egg a day. I have an egg every day for breakfast, and he has an eggshell every day for breakfast. It's very cute. So you just peel your eggs. If you're at a sink, or I'm just going to submerge here, if they're fresh out the water, they do get quite hot, even if you have just run them under cold water. So just make sure you keep popping them in the cold water so you don't burn your fingers. There we go. That was a quite easy one. Sometimes I find eggs just a nightmare to peel, actually. Some come off nice and easy, and others just, it's a real battle. Make sure you get, with the eggs, you get the sort of peel, the shell, and then you get this sort of membrane underneath it. Make sure you get that membrane off as well. And if you can grab hold of that, that tends to make the peeling quite a lot easier, because that'll take some of the shell off with it if you can get the membrane coming off. There we go. Wonderful. And if you happen to have some hard-boiled eggs, sometimes I batch boil eggs so I have them ready because they're brilliant snacks. So if you happen to have done that, then obviously your street's ahead, and you can just use your already hard-boiled ones. There we go. Number 2. Oh, I can hear this boiling a wee bit vigorously, so I'm just going to give that a stir. That's coming on wonderfully, actually. And you see how that's now absorbed quite a lot of that milk. I think now's the time I'm just going to put the last splash of milk in. Give that a nice wee stir around. Excellent. Back to my eggs. Peel the last one. The moment of truth is when we cut into these and see if they're actually hard boiled or not. But it doesn't matter if they're, I quite like a runny yolk, but obviously you want the white to be nice and cooked. You don't want the, this one's going to be a nightmare, look. It's taking some of the white away with it. There's always one. just got to be patient when you're peeling eggs. If you try and do it in a hurry, you end up losing half the white with the shell. See, this one, the membrane bit just hasn't come away, which is, there you go. And if you can get that, then it just makes life easier. You see? There's an art to it. There's actually, I can't remember what it is. There are some various like old wives' tales. Maybe they're not old wives' tales. There's probably some science to it, and I'm flippantly saying it's an old wives' tale just because I don't know it. Somebody tell me if they do know it. Adding, I think maybe it's vinegar that you add to the pan when you're boiling eggs, and it should make the peel, the skin, the shell easier to remove. See, that's annoying. That's when it's hard, you end up pulling off some of the white just like that, which irks me. But there we go. Right, 3 eggs peeled with relative success. Right, I'm just hearing my Kedgeree bubbling away there, so I'm going to give it another wee stir. What I'm going to do at this point is pop the peas in to give them a chance just to heat up. Just pop them in there. Like I said, it doesn't have to be peas. What actually works in here quite nicely as well is fresh tomatoes. So if you've got 2 just salad tomatoes, you could dice them up and throw them in here instead, or as well, even 2 veggies in it, then that's even better. So just give that a nice mix through. Excellent. And then I'm just going to slice the eggs. And you can do this again, like the mackerel, as chunky or as thin as you like. I would say don't go too thin, otherwise they'll just break up on you. So that's probably as thin as I would go. And just slice them. And then once the Kedgeree's done, we're basically just going to stir them through. And the smaller you go, it just means the more egg you get throughout it. You know, you could just quarter them, but then it would mean you'd only get so many mouthfuls of egg in the dish, if you get what I mean. And I like more than a few mouthfuls of egg. Okay. Quite a satisfying feel, slicing a hard-boiled egg as well. There we go. Wonderful. So back to the pan, and then I think I'm just going to give this a taste test to see if the rice is cooked, because it's sort of absorbed all the milk now, which is a good sign. Still needs a bit longer, but I've used up all my milk, so what I'm going to do is just put in a splash more milk. I'm just going to do that by eye. So put a splash more milk in, and I think the key is to make sure that it's cooking really gently. So you know at the beginning there, mine was cooking a bit vigorously. I think that's why my rice isn't cooked, because I cooked it too fast at the beginning there because it was on a really hot ring, which meant that it absorbed the milk but didn't have long enough to cook the rice. So I'm just putting an extra, it's probably about 200 millilitres I've put in there, just to let that cook. So keep it on a nice low heat and just let that rice absorb that extra bit of milk and cook a little bit further. And then all we have to do is pop the egg in and give it a stir. So I'm just going to put this in here just so I can easily add it to the Kedgeree. Give my worktop a wipe, so then we're ready to serve. That didn't take long at all, did it? What time are we at? Yeah, 25 minutes, so it'll be ready in half an hour easily. Half an hour tops, so that's not a bad little weeknight dinner, is it? It stores really well. Keeps. How do you say that? Yeah, it keeps really well. You can just pop it in Tupperware, put it in the fridge, and it'll last in the fridge for a couple of days. I wouldn't really recommend freezing it, actually, to be honest, because rice is a bit, when you reheat rice, it kind of goes a bit, like it overcooks and goes a bit sort of, yeah, fluffy. That's not really the word I'm trying to say, you know what I mean? Kind of claggy. So if you heat it from chilled, you don't have to heat it for so long, obviously, so sort of about 4 minutes in the microwave if you've put it in Tupperware, put it in the fridge, then it'll heat up in the microwave for 4 minutes. Or you can put it in a pan, pop some more milk in with it just to make sure it sort of heats through and doesn't dry out. But yeah, if you were to heat it from frozen, it would need more time heating and then it would just dry out further. So I wouldn't recommend freezing, but absolutely it can stay in the fridge overnight and then be used the next day for lunch or another dinner. Any questions, guys? Give me a message if you got anything that you want to ask or check. Hopefully you enjoy this one as much as I do. What I'd also recommend if you have it is some black pepper. Just at the end, just grind some black pepper over the top, which gives it a lovely finish. Or if you've got any parsley or any fresh herbs, just give them a chop and sprinkle on the top at the end as well. All these things are lovely. If you are a spice fan or a curry fan, then you might think, I can barely taste the curry, because you can't really, because the fish is obviously quite pungent, as is the egg, and it's quite creamy. You don't really get a hit of curry at all. It's a really sort of subtle undertone. So if you do want more of a curry flavour, then you can pop another teaspoon of curry powder or a little dash of chilli in there, and that will help it pop. So for the spice fans amongst you, then you can do that. Well, let's see how we're going. The peas just give it a lovely extra colour, don't they? Without the peas, it's quite a beige dish, but you need a little pop of something. And in terms of what to serve this with, to be perfectly honest, I normally just eat it as it is, just a lovely bowl of Kedgeree. I would never normally put anything with it. But at this time of year, like some cabbage would be lovely. Just saute up some cabbage or anything like that, spinach or some veggies, anything like that would be really nice with it. But yeah, it's just as good, just solo as it is, delicious. So it's completely up to you. Right, let's give it a little check because it wasn't far off. Just 1 or 2 more minutes, I'd say. Now, taste it. I personally don't think that needs any salt, but you might think it needs a little pinch because we've not put any salt in there whatsoever. It's just the sort of salt from the mackerel, which is quite a salty. Well, is it salty? Yeah, I guess it is. It's definitely got saltiness to it. So I don't think it needs any salt, but you could add a pinch. I wouldn't add any more than half a teaspoon because I think that would overpower it. But if you want to add half a teaspoon or less of salt, then that might be to your taste. And as I say, a wee sprinkle of black pepper would be good as well. And any herbs you want to add too. But yeah, this is, ooh, I'm excited. It's going to be a good dinner. So what else can we chat about? Yeah, so in terms of mixing up, like I said, with the peas, you could do fresh tomatoes instead. I'm a massive mackerel champion, so I do think, even if you're not a mackerel fan, I would suggest trying it because it is such a healthy fish. It's so good for you. But if you're really anti-mackerel, or if you're cooking it for the family and you're like, the kids are just not getting on board with it, then salmon, cod and haddock, and salmon actually, they're all really, really mild fish. So you might have a bit more luck in terms of getting that through the taste gates, so to speak, with some people. So if you want to do that instead, then that will work with this recipe as well. Salmon probably better in terms of the health benefits, in terms of it being an oily fish, than cod or haddock, but all will work for this recipe really well. Cod and haddock you can actually get quite easy, well, salmon as well, like frozen in bags. Again, is really quite easy to cook, so you just do the exact same, but obviously the cans come in oil, so what you do is just put a tablespoon of oil in the saucepan to begin with, and then put the frozen or fresh or tinned, even depends what you get, but put your fish in with the oil, and then just cook that off before you then add the rice and the curry powder. But basically the exact same process. So the reason I said that's coming together nicely, it's drying off again a bit, so I'm actually going to put a little bit more milk. So that's quite a bit more than the recipe. We're probably at like, well, I'm going to say this was a litre, so we're probably at about 800 millilitres now. So It could take a fair bit more than the 600 that's in the recipe, but it's all to do with the speed you cook it, so don't stress. Yeah, the reason I said this is a spin on my mum's recipe, which is what I've based it on, not really based it on, I've based it on loving Kedgeree from when my mum used to make it. But she used to make it completely differently, where she boiled the rice, boiled the eggs, cooked the fish. She cooked the fish in the milk. She cooked the fish, boiled the fish in milk, boiled the eggs, cooked the rice, and then she made a white sauce with, like, you know how you use like butter and then flour and then add milk to it. You sort of make a roux and then add milk to make a nice white sauce. She'd do that with the milk that she boiled the fish in, so the sauce would have quite a fishy, it'd be like a fishy tasting white sauce. She made all those components separately and then added it all together, so it was kind of a really creamy, kind of the outcome was the same. I'd say hers is a bit creamier and minus the curry powder, so it didn't have that curriness to it, but the outcome was pretty similar. I'm not sure if she would agree or my sister or dad would agree either if they were to try this creation, but I'm going to say they're both equally good. There we go, that's starting to look puff up. The rice is sort of puffing up a bit now as well, so I think we're nearly there. Final taste test, and then I think it's time to put the eggs in. Yeah. Getting there now. So check your rice by doing just what I've done. Eat it, basically. That's the best way to test. And you just want to make sure there's not like a bite in the middle. Rice isn't really like pasta, and you want it al dente. You want your rice cooked. Otherwise, it might cause havoc with your stomach because it's kind of hard to digest if it's not cooked properly. So at this point, once it's cooked, get your eggs, pop them in, and gently stir them through. You don't want them to break up too much. And there we go. And then I've not got any pepper, but if you've got some pepper, then give it a shake of pepper on the top to season it with that as well. Oh yeah, that looks good. Excellent. And there we have it. Kedgeree, done. Serve it up, and I am so ready for this. Right. Yum. Oh yeah, I'm being a bit greedy tonight. I'm gonna go to town with portions, but that and a little bit of egg on top. That looks divine. Just gonna get those out of the way. So it's picture perfect. There you have it. Kedgeree, nutrition powerhouse and comfort food all rolled into one, and it's not often you get to say that. So this is one of my absolute favorite dishes. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do, and I shall see you next month. Take care for now. Bye.